Hi everyone, I'm Jesse Lynn.
And I'm Angela Lynn, and welcome back to another episode of But Where Are You Really From? Today, instead of me in the hot seat, we've put Jesse in the hot seat this time. We are talking about open relationships.
Wah,
This.
wah.
Yes. This is kind of like a continuation of a series of topics that we've been covering on the show. We've kind of like delved into many different aspects of dating, relationships, intimacy, and how that's played into our own lives, how we kind of operate, trauma we have, challenges we still deal with in that respect. So, this was like another facet that we wanted to talk about because it does impact one of us at least, which is why Jesse's in the hot seat.
Hi.
So, I think this topic is super interesting for a lot of people because a lot of people don't really know much about what an open relationship really means, like why people would be in an open relationship, how it actually operates. And by people, I mean me. I also don't know how any of that shit works, which is why I'll be asking the questions today. And I think just to start it off, I would like to ask you how you define an open relationship and what made you want to be in an open relationship.
So I feel like a lot of people think an open relationship is exactly what it sounds like, which is just like you have a primary partner, but your relation to that person has no rules, meaning like you can go outside of that partner for sex, for emotional needs, for comfort, whatever, and your partner has the same kind of freedom. And that can be what it is for some people, but actually I looked into this a lot when I first embarked on this open relationship journey because I know naturally I'm a very jealous person for various reasons, like past issues and whatever. And so I was like, open relationship, like this is not for me. Like I will die of like emotional pain. So first of all, I started reading this really old book called The Velvet Rage. It's written by this psychotherapist, I think, or hypnotherapist. He maybe do both of things based off of his work with queer men or gay men over a number of years. And it, like, I wanted to see the two sides basically. This book, the kind of conclusion is that gay men have this kind of extended adolescence where you have these open and like fun relationship structures to accommodate or to offset those years where you were not able to have that, and also like to offset those areas of emotional development that you didn't really get. So I was kind of trying to see like, okay, on one hand you have this where at the end he kind of proposes that the most stable relationship is like one where you have one and one partner and you satisfy each other's needs and urges and whatever. And then on the other hand, I read this book called The Ethical Slut, which is basically talking about how open relationships work and like what kinds of methods and ways you can use to navigate that. And as I looked into it, I was like, both of these things make sense, but I actually felt like the ethical slut one made a lot more sense to me because in the open relationship that I have with my partner and myself, we have like a document, like a Google document, and it's basically like, what do I want out of this open relationship? So like, um, here are like our primary drivers of why we want the open relationship. Here are like the hard line, like these are the things that we need to respect about each other, and like things I like, things I don't like about our relationship. And so actually being in an open relationship, I this is like the most intentional relationship I've ever been in, where I laid down with my partner like, hey, here are the things that really hurt my feelings. These are the things that I really love about our relationship. And we have like a quorum and understanding of each other's needs and wants, not only as it relates to how we explore relationships outside our primary relationship, but also how we explore our own relationship. And so I found that to be really, really just a completely different experience, right? Because I think like with my prior relationships, there was just a lot of assumptions happening in the background. And it kind of, I do get a little bit frustrated because there are some things where you're like, well, that's not assumption, that's just like a given. But then when I think about it, I'm like, well, is it like maybe it makes sense for me, but maybe it doesn't make sense for the other person. And so like having that discussion opens up a really kind of a better understanding between you and your partner of like where your perspectives are for a specific type of need. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I came to this, and it's been interesting so far. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, most of it, but I'll circle back. Hold on. First of all, like I'm already like should I consider? No, but no. But I like based on what you're talking about, I'm already like this is a lot. Like you said, I think most people who don't know anything about it do think it's literally what it sounds like with the word is like free for all. But based on the way that you just described it, I was like, wow, you really are like it almost sounds like a more mature way to approach a relationship in that you are forced to be very explicit with your needs, your boundaries, and like what that means with each other and how you like interact with each other. And to your point, most of the time in like quote unquote regular relationships, we don't define those things like as explicitly. So I think that is like miscommunication is like in any relationship often the cause of problems in relationships because there are assumptions made and then feelings hurt because blah blah blah. So I already like first of all, yeah, just wanted to put out there like I'm already very intrigued and very like have more respect towards this whole like ideology just by the way that you've described how you've like laid it out for yourself. So yes, you answered first part of like how you how you define it. I guess want to if you're comfortable sharing like which aspects are you like have you guys defined is the like open part and which aspects aren't, and also like I guess my other question is kind of like is this your first open relationship, and if so, if not, either way, like why were you first open to the idea of this? I know you said you looked into it more with those two books, but like why were you
Mhm.
first like actually I might want to explore this?
Okay, so the first one, like what parts of the relationship are actually open? I mean, it's mostly just that we're able to hang out with other people and if we want to choose to have sex with them. But I think the way that our relationship agreement is constructed, and I don't think you have to be in a relationship agreement to construct one of these. It's basically like a rooming agreement that you do in college where you just like, here are my like must-haves kind of situation. But it can be like a little bit more than that because the document's kind of like open, right? Like you can't really write out every single little thing, and that's not the spirit of it, right? So if you're doing this kind of exercise and your partner is trying to find ways to violate what makes you feel comfortable, it's just not going to work. Like you have to have some like mutual respect because you cannot write out like every single thing that you don't or do feel comfortable about. So basically like the way that our document is structured is like this is our open relationship. What do we want out of it? So for me, it's that like I finally feel like I'm at full power, right? And I want to like use that power to have sex with other people, feel attractive, like really lean into that. And as part of that, first of all, I want to acknowledge and highlight what I really like about our primary relationship. Like here are the things that I really love about us that I think that I do really well for you, you do really well for me. Here are the things like specifically I want to do in the open relationship, like the top kind of things. And then like kind of a list of behaviors or activities that will make me feel secure when I'm in a engagement with someone, let's say. So I would write something that's like, okay, like if you're gonna hang out with someone, you're gonna hook up with them, shoot me a text before, let me know. Shoot me a text when you're done, let me know. Like those are the things I kind of already know about myself that would make me feel a lot more comfortable about what's going on. And it's just all detailed in there. Um, your second question, which is it my first open relationship and how did I come to the conclusion of doing this? Got it.
How did you
So
come to the conclusion that you wanted
how I
one.
wanted it.
Or that you were
Okay.
even open to, especially because you said that thing about like, you know yourself that you're a jealous person. So, like, how did you make that leap of like, I'm naturally jealous, but I'm also interested and open to exploring an open relationship?
Yes. So I've been in three total serious relationships, and I would say all three of them have been open in some respects, meaning that like it was not fully monogamous when it comes to sex. And it's because the first one, it was like long distance. So it was kind of like, I'm not going to be a nun for like a year or like months. The second one was kind of like open in the sense that people would be brought into the primary relationship, but we, not necessarily were going off one on one with other people. And then this one is kind of like more open. Like we have the freedom to do that, or we can bring another person into the relationship. It's kind of whatever whatever we both feel will be fun and interesting for the other person and for the relationship overall. How did I come to this conclusion? I mean, after my last breakup, which was not really good, I really tried to think about like basically think more intentionally about my relationships because after that one ended, I was like, oh my God, I was like sleepwalking for the past couple of years. Like I just felt like I was there because this was what I thought it should be versus like, is this really what I wanted? And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, could I really be satisfied with one person sexually for the rest of my life? I mean, like, the reality is, like, I think my current partner is really sexy, like, super sexy. But do I look at other people? I'm like, yeah, if there's someone really cute, I'm like, damn, that person's really cute.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like you can't shut that down. So like there's always this natural inclination that you're interested in the person. And so for me, I was just like, well, like I just don't think it is realistic to deny yourself of this for the rest of your life. Let's imagine you got married at like 25 or something like that, or 20 even. That's like you're getting married at the first 20% of your life, and the remaining 80% of your life, you are sealed with this person. And for some people, that's fine. That's totally cool. But for me, I was like, I feel like I would get bored. It would cause strains on the primary relationship. And I don't, it just like if logically didn't make sense to me. I like eating, I don't know, bubble tea. But I don't eat bubble tea every day for the rest of my life. Like I would be so fucking bored and like sick of it. So I think actually that was kind of where it started, where I was like, okay, I don't know if I could just be enjoying one person for the rest of my life. And then I started doing the reading to try to understand, like, okay, what are the resources available to me so that I can better understand what are the different kinds of relationship structures in play and how people operate themselves in them. And the interesting thing about both of the books is that they highlight various different types of relationship structures, including the ethical slut, which talks actually a great deal about monogamy, because monogamy is 100% valid relationship structure. Like they're not in the book, they don't shit on monogamy at all. They're like, this is a very difficult relationship structure for obvious reasons, but it's a valid one. So that's kind of where I started. Went to the books, reading to try to figure out if I could be comfortable in it because I wasn't sure at that point. And then we had the discussion around um, this document and like wrote it all down, and then we just tried it. And I would say like the second reason is that because I know that I'm naturally a jealous person, I was like, I don't like this about myself. And I feel like if I put myself in an environment where I can confront it and realize that jealousy is me being afraid of something that may or may not happen and being able to reinforce that the negative thing won't happen, which is that the relationship will not work out, will reduce the kind of jealousy that I have. And so I was like, for me, this is also a really great way to work on this like thing about myself that I don't necessarily really like. Because I have plenty of friends who are in open relationships and they're like, yeah, I'm not jealous at all. And I'm like, how? Like, I want to be that person. Like, I want to be that person where when my partner's like, going to sleep with someone really hot, I'm like, you go, girl, like, go get it. Because there is some aspect of that where I'm like, that's kind of hot. It's hot that you're interested in someone else, and it's hot that you can like get them. So, yeah, those are the things.
Okay, let's delve into the jealousy piece more because this is something that obviously, like, me thinking about this even as a remote possibility is like my biggest hindrance as well. I guess you mentioned you have little things like text me before, text me after, just like the knowledge of the thing having happened helps you with the jealousy. I think for me, my biggest qualm is like the sex part is one thing, but I'm more scared that sex can lead to feelings. And for me, the emotional side would be much more destructive to like my well-being and our relationship than just like a purely physical one. So how do you guys navigate that, the emotional aspect, I get like potential emotional aspect, and then also how do you personally navigate that as like controlling your jealousy to not spiral or like whatever as it pertains to potential feeling development?
Oh yeah. Okay, so let me just say first of all, I still feel jealous a lot of the times, and like the jealousy sometimes is crippling. But I already knew that going into it that that's what would happen. From my partner's perspective, it's quite easy for him. He's like, I'm not jealous. He's like, I'm not really. He's like a little bit jealous sometimes. I'm not really jealous. Like, and he also says that um, he has a good head for separating like sex and intimacy, like feelings. So I'm like, okay, like I trust you on that, like because I can't cut your head open and see if you're telling me the truth. I'm just gonna trust you on that. For me, it's the same kind of thing. So actually, there are a few things that I put into our agreement, specific things that I was like, this will make me feel a little bit better because these kinds of activities veer into that like intimacy zone, right? So I put things that's like, I would really prefer if you didn't have pillow talk with anybody, right? Because that's like a really intimate thing that I would prefer doing with you. I would prefer that you don't do sleepovers with anyone because that's also like for me, that's kind of a little bit more intimate. Like it could lead to pillow talk and like other stuff that is kind of veering into the feelings territory. But that's kind of like for me, like those are the things that are like the trigger things that I know will be like, ooh, I'll be mad about that. And then like the rest of it, as I thought about it, I'm like, would I really be mad about these kinds of things? Because like this one time he went to hook up with somebody, and it was just like light floating around. They mostly just like watched TV together, and I was like, oh, is this intimacy? But then I was like, this is kind of what you would do with like any other friend, but you're just kind of like at the end of it or during it, you maybe like fooling around a little bit. So when I was thinking about it that way, I was like, it's less threatening to me because the behavior is not really any different than it would be with anybody else that he's just platonically not sexually in a relationship with. And I think that like sex part of it really like gives you like the jelly bellies for sure. So I have to like really think about, is whatever he's doing with this person really that abnormal where it's like a intimate thing that is not shared with anybody else. It's just with that person. And if it's not, then I can still feel jealous, like my feelings are valid, but is there the risk there to the relationship? Not really. Like if there's no more risk than would be he would fall for any other friend that he knows, right? Because it's just, it's not any special activity. So that's kind of just how I generally think about it. And also, I don't hide my feelings. Like, if I'm jealous about something, I will try to respectfully communicate, like, hey, um, you told me this thing. I didn't feel really great about it. And this is why. And we'll try to have as adult conversation as we can about it. So I do think that those things all together help navigate the jealousy a little bit better.
Okay, two follow-up questions. Obviously, I'm so inquisitive on this. One is, do you have anything around multiple times with the same person? Because that's something I would be like kind of jealous about and be afraid that that could develop into something. It's like if you're constantly hitting up like the same person, it just like, even if you don't mean to, could turn into something else. So I'll let you
Oh, this is a
explain that
great question.
first.
You're excellent questions. So this is also kind of a sticking point for me because I was in a long-term relationship for a really long time. So I don't have a lot of people that I used to hook up with. And my partner does. So he knows a lot of people who are kind of like repeats, as you say. And originally, when we were talking about it, I think we did discuss like how do we feel about repeats and like what the situation is. But I keep thinking about it like I just frame it the way that I think about the whole friends thing. Like I also know some of his friends that he's been friends with a while, so I'm like, okay, like is what he is what he's doing with this person any different from what he's doing with any of his other long-term friends? And also like if it's literally just a hookup, like you know he's going there to literally just get banged by somebody and then leave, I don't feel threatened at all because you might be a little digmatized, but like there's no chance of like intimacy developing, at least for me. Like I don't think that just sleeping with the same person over and over again will develop intimacy. Like it's just sex. And the other thing is that once I started exercising my part of the open relationship, like sleeping with other people, and I started sleeping with the same people, I was like, yeah, this is not threatening. Like, because I came into this relationship with this other person with the intention of, maybe making friends with them, having sex with them, and that's it. And because those were my intentions, like I have that rule with them. And so having that personal experience made me more comfortable because I was like, okay, cool. Like I understand that it's not happening for me where I'm like falling for someone, that I'm sleeping with multiple times. So it's also possible that that's not happening for my partner.
Okay, that is exactly leading into my second question, which is more on you and you kind of curbing your own potential emotional development. So, because you've set these like intentions for yourself with any interaction, you found that you are able to keep yourself from like randomly developing feelings. Because I hear what you're saying about like theoretically just banging someone and leaving doesn't lead to feelings necessarily, but we've also discussed in the past that like we've both confused like sexual encounters and like lust for somebody as like a way of getting validation about your worth and like confusing it for potential love or emotion, right? So like you've actually successfully drawn that line, and if you have, like, do you, how do you see that you've been able to do that knowing our history that we've discussed of like making those confusions in the past?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's always going to be a really tricky thing because feelings are feelings. You can't control them. Um, I will say that I think we've discussed this before in the past. I believe that you have the possibility of many, many, if you want to call it soulmates, but many, many compatible people in the world to be your partner. And so when it comes down to it, let's say, for example, you have 100 compatible people and they're all equally compatible. What's your decision to stay with any one person? It's just that it's a decision. You're like, oh, I've committed to being with you. I like being with you and I'll stay with you. That's it. That's the only thing holding your relationship together. It's not like magic. It's not unless you're married, you don't have a binding contract. Like all that's keeping you together is your decision to stay together. And so with that in mind, yeah, sure. Like I think there are certain situations where when I run into someone really interesting or really cute, I still develop kind of like crushes. So like recently when we were in LA, there was this really cute guy. We went out, we hooked up. I think I have like a mild crush on him, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to change anything about my primary relationship. It doesn't change my feelings towards my partner. There's additive feelings for this other person, but that doesn't somehow diminish how I feel towards my primary partner. And it also doesn't change my decision to be committed to him, if that makes sense. So I think there's a huge like people are scared because there's this risk that you'll lose the person that you love because there's 100 other people that could just be perfect for them. But the thing is, it comes down to a decision, right? So like you can't control what another person decides or doesn't decide. So at the end of the day, for me, I'm like, I might as well enjoy all of these different avenues for my feelings to go because I can't control at the end of the day, like if John wants to be with someone else that's equally compatible, I can't be like, no. He's his own person. And same here. Like he can't do that to me. So I feel comfortable in it because I've made this commitment to him and I don't think that I plan on changing it. So that's kind of how I think about it when these other like feelings or crushes or interest in other people arise.
Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. For me, it just everything you said makes 1,000,000% chance. I mean, fuck, what am I saying? 1,000,000%
Sense.
sense. Makes
It's a two
sense.
sense.
Makes sense. But for me, it's basically you're right in that like you literally can't control anyone but yourself, right? Like even if you've made a what you called one of the like binding contract like marriage or whatever, right? Like that's why divorce exists. You know, like people there are still ways out because you literally cannot enslave a person into like doing everything that you want.
Mhm.
I guess the fear that I have, and I'm guessing many people have, is like you can't control if your bound partner, like your married partner or whatever, develops feelings for somebody else outside of your relationship. But if you've kept the relationship closed, theoretically, you're minimizing the number of chances that they have to have developed those feelings because the people that they meet to have potential with are fewer than if you said it's open and then they're, you know, like potentially every week they might be meeting somebody for, you know, the agreed upon
Yeah.
open activities
Yeah.
and you're just like increasing the number of encounters is what I like that's my
Yes.
fear, I
I
guess.
understand. Yeah. I mean, it's a risk. It is a risk of being in an open relationship, but kind of ask yourself that question like at least for me, I'm like, okay, so if I open the relationship and if my partner left anyways, how strong was my relationship to begin with? Like, so you're closing it, you're eliminating the opportunities that the person will stray outside of the relationship, but that doesn't you're missing like that there might be a primary need that your partner has that's unexpressed, and you'll never know because they'll never it's your relationship's not open, they'll never explore it. Of course, that's also I'm going to retract that. You might know if you have a really tight relationship and everyone is being very forthcoming with like what they want and like what their needs are, then there is no need to go outside the relationship. But sometimes people are looking for something that the primary partner cannot provide, or they're just looking for something interesting, which is different. Um, and I guess for me, it makes more sense to give my partner that freedom to do that because I kind of want the same. And so it wouldn't be fair for me to say like, oh, only I can do that versus like you cannot do that. Then it's like kind of lopsided. But it reflects a need that I also have. So I have to be fair and give the same freedom to the other partner.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Follow-up question is now kind of on a different angle is with the people that you or your partner decide to have encounters with. How do you basically just like are upfront that you're already in an existing committed
Mm.
relationship and like these are ground rules or like how or do you just like whatever like unspoken that like I'm coming here for a hookup as we've discussed and
Mhm.
then I choose to leave before any such pillow talk or whatever could happen so that I obey my own rules? Or do you actually like explicitly lay out some things with this person?
Um, I don't usually like I don't see the need to do that. Like I don't see why it's that person's business, particularly if I didn't say like if it's not a date, like it's not like it's not information that I necessarily see as pertinent to having sex with somebody because I don't feel like I'm misleading them in any way. Like I'm not being like, this is the date or I have romantic interest in you. Like I'm always very clear with people like, hey, like, come on over, let's hook up, hang out. That's it. If people ask, that's for sure. Like I will tell them like, hey, I have a boyfriend. We've been together, so blah 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 blah. Open relationship, yada yada. And if they want to know more about like what that looks like, yeah, I'll take the time to explain it to them. But I don't think it's necessary to tell a person that you're in an open relationship, um, unless you somehow, like, your lead in into that encounter is somehow misleading the person into thinking that you might be available in some manner that is not okay within the rules of your relationship.
Okay, so you are only upfront about like sex only, essentially hookup only, but then there's no, unless there's like additional prodding from their end, there was no like additional context given, usually.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, like, what's it to a random person that I'm sleeping with that I'm in an open relationship?
Well, yeah, I guess this is a like question I have of like whether there might be a difference between queer relationships and like heteronormative, whatever the like PC phrase
That's
is now.
straight.
The straights, exactly. Because I feel like, I mean, obviously, Grinder exists because it originally started, right, for to enable hookups, and it has developed. People use it for many different reasons now, but
Nah,
like,
girl, it's still for.
okay, yeah, so we don't, but that's the thing. Like, for straight people, we don't have just a, like, just for sex app. Like, you can argue that Tinder is, like, unspokenly more the, like, hookup app than other dating apps. But there is no, like, literally, we all agree if you own this app and you're on it, you're there just for sex kind of thing. So when I think about, like, what would this look like for my relationship, I'm just like, I have all these like concerns and like, because people do hook up on like a first encounter or whatever when you are in a like dating environment. And that doesn't mean they are excluding the potential for like feelings to develop. So I guess for me, I'm just like, I wouldn't feel secure with
Okay.
like, because there is no like like known thing of like this is just sex. We all know this is just for sex kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. Super fair. So I will say in my Grinder profile, I do have it written that I am in an open relationship. So, like, literacy is pretty low here, but if anyone opened it up and actually like looked at it, they would know. So I'm not,
Sure.
again, I'm like not hiding anything at all. Like, I'm super upfront if people want to know. But I also don't feel like it's relevant. In I do not believe that the straights do not have a sex app. There are way
Maybe none
more.
of us talk
I
about it.
mean,
I
it might
mean,
be like a small thing, but um, I also feel like that could be, I don't know, it could be a way, like, when you're on an app to just put it in the profile, be like open relationship. But I kind of understand what you're saying is that, like, because you're on like Bumble or Hinge or whatever, there's this maybe that you might be in a dating kind of situation. And that's where I would say it's on whoever's in the open relationship to kind of make it clear in the profile, like, hey, I'm in a committed relationship, but I'm looking for fun with someone else. So you're not misleading anyone. Yeah.
okay. I have a question about, I think you've mentioned like either in the past or your current relationship, there have been times where you both as a couple decide to invite a person into both of your dynamics. And like, how is that usually decided? No? You know what I'm asking?
No, can
Threesome.
you, oh, okay, okay, okay. I was like the same person, but like different
Oh.
times. Yeah,
Oh,
you could have like someone
interesting
who you're both
question.
interested.
Yeah.
What do you mean,
Well,
like?
because, yeah, is it like, because I think you've mentioned in the past, like, you're out with each other and then
Mhm,
you like meet a bunch of people
yeah,
and
yeah.
then like someone is interesting to both of you or
Hmm.
whatever. And then you decide to like all go home that night or whatever.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like, has it been just like fair game? Like, both of you have asked the other person, like, hey, would you be open to this
Yes.
together? Okay.
Yeah.
You've both initiated that on different encounters or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, I think if your question is like if we've ever been out together and then one of us just goes to some random person and be like, "Do you want to have three-way with us?" without consulting the other person, that's not how it goes
No, no.
down. Okay.
No. I mean, like, when you're both out and you're both, like, or one of you is like, oh, this, I like this person and it could be interesting for us
Hmm.
to have, like, all
Hmm.
three of us have an activity
Hmm.
tonight. Has it been both of you at different points to be like, hey, Jesse, or hey, partner, like, I think this could be fun. Like, what do you think? Or is it mostly like one of you is like more?
Oh, no, I think we're generally in sync because what we want out of the open relationship is basically kind of the same, which is
Mm.
like sex with different people outside of the two of us. But also like we have pretty good overlap. Like there are some people that my partner is interested in that I'm like not, and also vice versa. But I think that we have a good overlap of like if he picks someone out and he's like, "Yeah, are you interested in this person?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think they're pretty cute. Let's do it." Um, and I feel like both of us have um, action on that before. And generally, we don't bring strangers. It's kind of strangers is a bad term, but like we don't bring someone that's like completely that we just met usually.
Mm.
Like it's usually someone that we at least have like somewhat we know them a little bit. Like either
Oh,
like we met
interesting.
them at some place before or at least we've seen them around. So that both of us kind of have like an equal knowledge of this person, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. And the like, because I know when it's separate encounters, you know when someone is like, I'm meeting this person, I'm done meeting this person, but you're not seeing it obviously. So when you are in a shared experience of seeing your partner with a different person does not evoke jealousy in you at all.
Um, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I will say the last few times we've done it, we were pretty high. So I, but I will say I'm never so blitzed that I can't feel my emotions. So when I'm not feeling good, even when I'm really high, I'm like, ooh, I don't like this. And I want to say that I don't really feel that. In fact, the last time we did it, I was like, this is fucking hot. Like, more please. Um, and when you're separate, let's say, it kind of depends on what makes you feel comfortable. So for me, I was like, I feel the most comfortable if I can feel included, because like when you're doing that, when you're off with someone else by yourself, it's kind of you're not intentionally excluding the person, but the person is your partner is not there. So I was like, if you feel comfortable and the person agrees, like take a photo, take a video, like at least so I can see what's happening. And that makes me feel like I didn't miss it. Like I was still there. And so we kind of do that as a way to make it so like even though we're off doing our individual activities, like the other person can still kind of enjoy it in some way, shape, or form. Of course, like some other people are like, I don't want to know about that at all. Like some people are like, I don't want to hear about what you're doing. Like I don't really care. Like don't tell me. And that's perfectly valid. It just really depends on what each person feels comfortable doing. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to like where I'm like, I can't make that jump for myself, which is like because I don't know if it's as frequent of a thing in straight couples as in gay couples. I don't know. I don't know any stats around it, but it's just like I don't. None of my friends have like, or very few of my friends have expressed being in one or like being interested in exploring one, etc. And for me, I'm also thinking about like in the future, near future, right? We want to start like a family, like bring kids into the mix. And I just like cannot picture explaining to to family or like I don't know what like a parent or like a peer sees us on an app or whatever, and then like we have kids and they have to like they ask us and or like our kid finds out
Oh,
or whatever, and like how to explain that. And I just like I would not know how to handle that conversation.
so what I will say about the relationships, I feel like it's very much environment self-enforcing because there are so many monogamous relationships in, but not all straights are monogamous, like Mormon,
Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah, totally.
polyamorous, like, but it's just like because of the majority of the people are in this relationship structure, you may not even it may not even be in your head that there's another kind of relationship structure for you. And B, it doesn't leave room to make you feel comfortable that you can explore, right? If all of your friends are in like a committed married relationship, you're like, well, maybe this is just what's for me. Like, I don't need to, like, why do I, it doesn't feel comfortable. Versus like in gay world, I'm like, Jesus, is there anybody in a monogamous relationship? Like everybody's in an open relationship. So like I do feel
Mm.
like there is a lot of that where it's kind of like your environment and the kind of relationships that you're exposed to can give you the freedom and comfort to say like, hey, maybe I do feel comfortable like at least exploring this versus not. When it comes to like furthering your family, there's actually a really interesting section in the ethical slut that specifically talks about this because it is a very difficult thing for you to explain, especially let's say to your parents or to like other parents, why there may be multiple parent figures. If you're interested in it, I would read that. I think that does a much better job in explaining like the ins and outs of it. Um, but at the end of the day, like it's really nobody else's business but your own. Like you can tell people about it, but it's not their business. Like and if you're not sleeping with the person, you don't have a relationship with the person, like it's none of their business. Like
Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate proactively volunteering the information. I'm thinking about like how would we even be exploring other partners, and it would largely, I assume, be through apps. And then it's like
oh,
that's
I
pretty
see.
public
Yeah.
for anyone to like see your face and know. And if they run into you on the street or you happen to run in like similar social circles, it would come up. So I'm just like, oh, I don't know how I would
Yeah, I
explain
think
that.
that definitely adds to the kind of barriers to entry, if you will. But I kind of feel the same way. Like, you don't have to explain anything. Who are these people? It's kind of like the whole internet trolls we're talking about. Like, if you don't, if this person like barely knows you, you don't owe them anything. Even if they know you, you don't owe them anything. It's your sex life. Like, they don't have any say in it. So that's kind of like how
Yeah.
I think about it because obviously like there will be some kind of like respectability lens and all that stuff that needs to be navigated, which I think is blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, like your private personal life is your private personal life and it's not anybody else's business.
I mean, you're right. I think I just personally need to build more self-confidence to like believe that for myself and like defend myself in that kind of position if when and if anyone were to like come up to me like, "Whoa, I saw you
I'm
on this
sure
thing."
plenty of people will, but it's again, it's like that doesn't change like even if you're a parent, it doesn't change whether or not you're a good parent or not, whether or
Right.
not you're teaching your child the correct values. That has nothing to do with that. Like
Yeah.
you're not like a one thing person. Like that's not all that you are. It's just a facet of you, just a
Yeah.
facet of the relationship structure that you're in.
True. Oh, well, I've learned so much today.
Yay!
So, and thank you for sharing
Of
everything and
course.
being open. Open.
Haha.
Transitioning into the fortune cookie close. What is the most unexpected thing that you learned about yourself being in an open relationship?
About myself. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. That's such a great question. I think I'm a lot more flexible than I give myself credit for because like I've always felt I feel like I live a very regimented life. Like I have an agenda for my day, I have a schedule of things I want to do. I have these like ABC things that I do every day and I don't like to deviate. And being in an open relationship kind of throws a monkey wrench into that a little bit, where it's like you have to be a little bit more flexible with what you're doing relationship wise. And I found that, for example, I was saying like I thought I was going to die of jealousy. I didn't die of jealousy. So like there are things like that where I'm just like, oh, I am a little bit more flexible in certain areas of my life than I thought I was. Because originally I was like, there's no way. Like, I would be feeling so like negative all the time. I would be like so uncertain about what my partner is doing all the time. And that's kind of not necessarily been the case as we move along in our relationship. So I definitely feel like doing this had made me realize how flexible I really am and I can really like explore different things without kind of fear of damage to my core self, if that makes sense.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Proud of you.
thank you.
Great. Well, this was very enlightening, I will say. So listeners, hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed asking these
These are
questions.
very good questions. Thank
Thank
you.
you. If you have more questions for Jesse and he doesn't feel like his privacy is being invaded, you could write in your questions and see if he chooses to respond or not. At telluswhereyou'refrom@gmail.com. Or hit him up if you're cute. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, hit me up if you're cute, for sure. Yeah.
Send normal pics. Don't send dick pics to that email, yo. Send your
If you're gonna
face.
send nudes, they better be good nudes, okay? None of
And
this like
send them DM Jesse on Instagram. I don't wanna see that shit. We have a shared
for
email
the
account.
podcast.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. I will not.
I'm
Please
kidding.
don't.
No, no.
DM
Angela doesn't want to
Jesse
see that shit.
personally. Or just leave comments, feedback, whatever on what you found interesting or lingering questions you have or whatever on our socials. And come back next week because we'll have another episode for you then. And until then,
Like, damn,
再见,
bitches.
bitches.